What's up, guys? Welcome to G Whiskey. My name's Jeff. Now, this is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and if you stick around to the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below. And with that out of the way, why don't we jump into our review? Today, we're going to be looking at Deanston Virgin Oak. Stick around. So we got a Deanston with us here today. Deanston is a Highland distillery, and it's one that's been getting a lot of traction, I would say just over the last few years. I remember about 10 years ago when I was just getting started in whiskey. You wouldn't see this on too many bar shelves or in whiskey shops. Very few people were talking about it. Flash forward to today, this has become a hugely popular brand. Now, the Deanston distillery that we have today actually started its life as a cotton mill. It's hundreds and hundreds of years old. For the first 180 years, it served as just that, a cotton mill. Eventually, in 1966, they converted it into a distillery, and it's been making whiskey since then. The brand Deanston, owned by the Distill Group. Distill Group is a South African brand. They also own Lejeg and Tobermory, as well as Bunnahabhain. The superstars of the Deanston lineup are probably going to be the 12-year-old and the 18-year-old. Pretty big hits. They seem to do really well with online reviewers, with whiskey YouTubers. You know, you'll have Whiskey of the Year, top 10 lists, what have you. I've had both of them. I like them. Maybe not as much as some other people out there, but I can definitely say they're well-made whiskeys. But Deanston's never really been one of my favorite distilleries. I often find their stuff a little bit too perfumey for my taste, and I don't know, maybe it's just not my style of whiskey. But I'm not ready to write them off completely. I do want to explore their core range a little bit more, and that brings us to our Virgin Oak here. So this one was matured in bourbon barrels, eventually getting switched over for a finish in Virgin Oak casks. Now, Virgin Oak casks, if you don't know, they're just casks that have never had anything in them. No bourbon, no sherry, nothing. The casks that they used for this were sourced from Kentucky, so it's going to be American Oak, Virgin Oak. Now, you do have to be careful when you're using Virgin Oak. That fresh wood, it has a very intense interaction with the whiskey. You leave it in for too long, you run the risk of completely overwhelming your whiskey with oak. You want to leave it in for just enough time where you get a nice firm oak presence, you round out a bit of that youth, but you don't overwhelm the whiskey. Now, like I said, Deanston is not one of my favorite distilleries, but it is something that I want to give a fair shot to. I want to try more whiskeys from them, and that brings us to our Virgin Oak. Now, Virgin Oak finishes in general can be hit or miss, depending on how good the execution is. So why don't we find out about this one? Why don't we hop into our review? Meanwhile, if you can kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So our ABV here comes in at 46.3%. That's the standard ABV for Distill Group releases. Beyond that, this is non-chill filtered and it is naturally colored. So we have some nice specs here. All right, so I'll show you the color of our whiskey there. I do like Deanston bottles. I think they look pretty good. They redid their label a couple years back, and I think it's a massive upgrade compared to their older labels. They're definitely going for like a craft look with this one. They have like a printed on stamp, printed on like handwriting, but it's still a good look. I think it's kind of cool. So score for presentation is going to be 4 out of 5. Not only does it look cool, it gives you most of the information you need. You've got unchill filtered here, finished in Virgin Oak casks. There's a little bit of fluff here and there, but they do keep it pretty simple. They should be mentioning that this is naturally colored. They don't do that, but whatever, we'll let that slide. Overall, nice bottle, looks good on the shelf. All right, let's check out our nose. So floral, almost perfumey. Yeah, that kind of classic Deanston perfumey note. Honey, heather, apples. Like a banana cream sundae, some resinous oak, some almonds. This is very nice, very pleasant, very approachable. Now let's try the palate. Kind of spicy here. Honey, there's a nuttiness to this, so like cashews, almonds. There's also vanilla. There's ginger, apples, cinnamon, and some definite maltiness to it. Now for our finish. So kind of like a resinous oakiness towards the finish. Things are getting maltier. You have baking spices, there's some black pepper, there's some cinnamon, some freshly sliced apples. You have icing sugar in here, you have some cereal notes and citrus notes, but not like orange or lemon, what you usually get in whiskey. This one's kind of like a liminess, a lime note. Kind of interesting. It's not a very long finish, but it's got good intensity. So this is kind of an interesting one. The Virgin Oak definitely left its mark here. Not in a very obvious way, but it is a resinous, woody, thick whiskey. The texture and the weight of it are kind of bourbon-like, which of course makes sense. This is finished in Virgin Oak. Bourbon is matured entirely in Virgin Oak. So we have a pretty unique character with this one, which is kind of unexpected. This is the entry-level expression for Deanston. Most entry-level expressions are going to be really a simplified version of the house style, without any twists, without any frills. Yes, this is a simple whiskey, but it has an intensity and a character that I didn't really expect. It definitely adds something different to the Deanston lineup. Now, this isn't one that blows me away, but I do think it's a solid Deanston. I think it balances accessibility and character. The highlight for me is going to be just that thick weightiness of the flavors. You have those resinous oaky notes and this rich maltiness. Comes together pretty nicely. So my score here is going to be 84. Now you might score it a little bit higher if this is the kind of profile that excites you, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm not the biggest fan of Deanston in general. I'm not completely sold on Deanston based on this one either. I do like it. I think it's a solid whiskey. It does have good balance, but barely. There are some flavors in here that almost become overbearing, but they pull back just in time. I think this is a competently made, well-crafted whiskey. I think there's going to be a lot of people out there who enjoy it a little bit more than I do, so I don't want to come off too harsh. Beyond that, I think if you're coming into Scotch from the world of bourbon, this is probably a good place to start. I think you'll find a lot of familiar flavors in here. Also, if you're just looking for like an entry-level Highlander with a bit more beefiness, this will do the trick. I do respect that this isn't trying to be a light, pretty little thing like, I don't know, maybe Glenmore G10, which I enjoy, by the way. Yes, this is a very light, relatively simple whiskey, but it's got good intensity to it. It's a whiskey with some balls. That being said, it's not going to overwhelm you. It's still a pretty accessible whiskey. I think if you're interested in these kinds of flavors, go for it. Speaking in terms of value, I think this is a pretty solid buy. It's got an entry-level price tag, which is right where it belongs, but this is going to have a more substantial set of flavors than what you usually get within that price category. Now, I checked pricing on Master of Malt. This is pretty similarly priced to the 12-year-old on Master of Malt. Where I live here in Taiwan, this is going to be several pounds cheaper. Now, it's been a while since I had the 12-year-old, but I think if I were to compare the two, I actually like this one a little bit more, and that's going to be the cheaper option. Now, of course, it's still not a favorite of mine, but that's just because, again, Deanston isn't really a house style that I ever really latched onto. Now, if you are a fan of Deanston and you want to see what a Virgin Oak finish does to it, absolutely check this one out. Alright, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. As always, do me a solid, hit subscribe down below, click that little bell icon, and of course, smash the like. I do want to hear from you. Have you tried Deanston Virgin Oak? How would you compare it to the 12-year-old? And finally, down in the comments, let me know what you want to see me review next. I'll keep it in mind for my next video. Bye, guys.